Today, we're going to break down a really powerful spiritual framework for transformation. It's all centered on the idea that specific spoken words, we'll call them decrees, actually have the authority to create real, tangible change in your life. So let's dive right in and see how this is all supposed to work.
I mean, really think about that for a second. What if the words you speak could literally change your reality, removing the biggest, most impossible barrier standing in your way? Well, that's the core idea, the whole premise of the framework we're exploring today. It's a system that's all about declaration and belief.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to walk through this step by step. First, we'll pinpoint the problems, the so-called mountains. Then, we'll look at where the power to even face them comes from. After that, we'll get into the specifics, the actions you take for both the battles outside and the ones inside. And finally, we'll talk about those inner chains that can really hold you back.
Okay, so first things first. You have to know what you're actually up against, right? This framework isn't about tackling vague feelings. It starts by getting really specific and categorizing the challenges we all face. According to the source material, pretty much any obstacle in our lives can be sorted into one of these 5 buckets. We're talking about everything: financial debt, a spiritual struggle, an emotional wound, a broken relationship, or even a physical sickness. The whole point is that the decree is designed to target each one of these barriers directly.
And this is absolutely crucial. Beyond those 5 specific areas, the framework adds this incredibly important phrase: every mountain of obstruction. Think of it as a catch-all. It's meant to cover any roadblock you can think of, and even the ones you can't that's standing in your way. Nothing gets left out.
All right, so you've identified the mountains. The next question is obvious. By what power, by what right, can you actually tell them to move? This next part gets right to the very heart of how this whole thing works. And here it is. This is the foundational claim. The source texts are very clear that the authority to make these changes isn't something you just muster up on your own. Nope, it's a delegated spiritual authority that comes from a connection to Christ. This is the bedrock, the foundation that every single command is built on. But having authority isn't the whole picture. The framework absolutely hinges on this one critical condition: unwavering faith. It points right to the scripture in Mark 11:23, and the message is clear. These commands have to be spoken without a shred of doubt in your heart, but with a full, complete belief that your words will become your reality. So you can really think of this entire decree as being built on 3 biblical cornerstones. You've got Mark 11:23, which is the blueprint for speaking to mountains with faith. Then there's 2 Corinthians 10:5, which gives the basis for taking control of your own thoughts. And finally, Isaiah 54:17 offers this incredible promise of defense against any opposition. Each one plays a very specific, very important role.
So, with the obstacles named and the authority established, how does this turn into action? Well, it's time to actually speak. This is where the process of transformation really kicks off.
The command itself is simple, it's direct, and it is powerful. It's not a negotiation, it's not a polite request. The framework instructs believers to speak directly to every single barrier, every mountain of obstruction, with this exact phrase, commanding it to be totally removed and, well, tossed into the sea.
But, victory isn't just about what's happening on the outside. This framework puts a huge emphasis on the internal battle, the battle for your mind. Because the idea here is that you can't consistently move the mountains out there until you've conquered the ones in here.
Now, the text uses a very specific word for these internal roadblocks: strongholds. So what exactly is a stronghold? Well, it's defined as any pattern of thinking, any argument, or any idea that sets itself up in opposition to the knowledge and truth of God. It's like an internal fortress built out of negative or false beliefs. So here you can see the conflict and the solution side by side. On one hand, you've got the stronghold, which is actively fighting against the truth, and on the other, you have the direct command to literally seize every one of those opposing thoughts and take it prisoner. It's described as a very active, very deliberate kind of mental warfare.
And capturing that thought, that's just the first step. The ultimate goal isn't just to shut down negativity, it's to completely transform it. Every single captured thought must then be brought into alignment, into submission, specifically to the obedience of Christ. It's all about shifting your mind from a state of internal rebellion to one that's in harmony with that foundational authority we talked about.
And finally, the decree moves from our general thoughts to some very specific internal bondages. This last part is all about targeting and breaking the chains that can keep someone trapped on the inside, even if their external mountains are starting to move.
The source material gets super specific here, naming 5 distinct chains that are to be broken by this decree: addiction, fear, depression, anxiety, and the chain of failure. These are seen as these specific spiritual bondages that require a direct command to be totally shattered.
And along with breaking those chains, the decree finishes by silencing 2 very specific internal voices. First, what it calls the voice of the accuser. That's the one that brings all the condemnation and shame. And second, the voice of discouragement, which just whispers doubt and hopelessness. The command is to just shut them down completely.
And all of this, it all culminates in this incredibly powerful overarching promise, taken right from Isaiah 54:17. This serves as the final declaration of victory, a statement of divine protection. It's an assertion that any attack, whether it comes from an external mountain or an internal stronghold, is ultimately destined to fail.
So that's the framework in a nutshell. You identify your mountains, you claim your authority, you command them to move, you conquer your mind, and you break your inner chains. It's a pretty comprehensive approach to transformation through the spoken word. And it leaves us with a really compelling question to think about. Looking at your own life, what internal argument, what pattern of thinking, what stronghold will you address first?
I see your smile in my own and hear your courage in my tone.